jumping right into it, I loved the showcase, and the main thing that jumped out to me immediately was that it felt like Yotei was sort of leaning into that more natural feel of Tsushima, where like the exploration isn't driven by UIs heavily. There's a lot more focus on discovery. What sort of approach at the studio made you want to push that further than you already had?
Well, certainly it's part of even in Ghost, having elements like the wind as a diegetic element to get you through the world is certainly, we believe strongly in that, and it resonated with our players for Tsushima. So combine that with when we decided we were making a game in Hokkaido or Ezo in this time period, which is just wild and epically large and vast and just filled with nature. And we're like, oh, we should just keep pushing here. This seems like a natural fit. It's all about keeping people, engaged and immersed in the world. And we really like that design. And it feels like it's a nice fit for Ghost. So for things like, giant journals, which are, a bit maybe, been around for a long time, right? Like it's just this giant list of all the things you've done and can do and will do. It's just kind of a bit almost overwhelming. We opted to try and come up with new ways to try to present you information while still being approachable to people, because people do want to explore and play the game in the different types of ways, right? Like some people really want to know where the golden path is and engage in it, and some people maybe want to have a larger appetite for exploration, just using a new spyglass, which is an exploration feature. It's very simple, easy to use. You can pull it out, check out where you want to go, and head there. Like this is our way of balancing sort of heading in a bit more diegetic, sort of exploration-driven area or way, but also sort of still celebrating the approachability of a Ghost game.
I mean, quite a common through line through some of the biggest games of sort of the last generation or two, like I think like Red Dead, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, is that sort of really high emphasis on discovery. Do you think the option for making that sort of natural discovery and putting that front and center, do you think that's the most important thing an open world can sort of achieve at the moment, or do you think there's something else that sort of comes into play?
Yeah, I mean, I think I personally, Nate, I'd be curious what you think, but I definitely feel like it's one of, if you're going to make an open world game, at least for Nate and myself and our team, and the beauty of the art team that we have, our team is just so stellar. They're so capable and amazing at creating this type of landscape. What better way to celebrate it with great game design that encourages, looking at the horizon and riding to it and rewarding people with cool side stories or interesting tales or, meeting a weapon sensei that's going to give you a whole new axis of play. That to me is like, it's not just a game design thing. I think it really is celebrating an entire department of Sucker Punch and really putting it front and center.
Amazing.
I agree, Jason. Sorry, you said it very well.
And I guess at a more like mechanical level, while you're both sort of in the game yourselves, which areas of the sequel do you think sort of stand alone or feel more different than maybe other elements that stick closer to the original game?
I am very excited about the combat in Ghosts of Yotei. In Ghost of Tsushima, we tried very hard to create that lethal precision that you'd see in classic samurai films. And, we really loved it. Players enjoyed it. And so we kept that strong foundation that made the samurai cinema experience happen. But with Yotei, we've added on a lot more layers in order to create a more improvisational feel to the combat. And it's deep. We've replaced the stance system with weapons. In fact, we added a fifth one, so it's not just 4, it's 5. And these weapons are more than just a simple visual replacement. They have functional differences that make the game very, very different. For instance, if you have the Kasuragama, you can swing it above your head to do an area of effect kind of attack. If you've got the spear, you can use it to launch enemies backwards. So if you're near a cliff, you can send them off the cliff to their death. This is something that wasn't in Ghost of Tsushima with this kind of decision making. Add on top of that, things like being able to disarm enemies or being disarmed yourself. Imagine what it would feel like to get disarmed when you're on top of a bridge and you lose your weapon far down below. Being able to pick up weapons, potentially a weapon you took off an enemy through disarm, throwing it at his buddy. On top of that, you've got these kind of quick fire weapons, including gunpowder and ranged weapons. there is a lot more going on in the combat in Ghost of Yotei that gives players a lot of freedom to attack players in a greater variety of ways.
Because I'm a really big fan of the disarm feature that you mentioned. I think it looks really cool. Do either of you have any features, I suppose, in combat or outside, that maybe there wasn't room to show off in the showcase, but I don't know, maybe you remember that that's in the game, it happens while you test them through, and you're like, yeah, this is a good call?
Well, one of the aspects of the game that I'm really attached to is the way that the wolf operates with you as a combat buddy. We showed you a very small snippet of that inside of the state of play. It's much more elaborate and full-figured, and I think the wolf is this character that, as we developed Ghost of Yotei, grew and grew in the hearts of our colleagues, because, man, it is very much kind of a center for heart of connecting with not only combat, where the wolf helps you, but just kind of the wildness that surrounds you.
Is that wolf, is that a companion through the open world as well, or will it turn up for specific levels? Because like you said, it hadn't been shown off too much.
The wolf is a wild animal that's kind of always at the edge of where you're at. It follows you, but it's not your dog at all. It is definitely a wild creature. And it will show up in some missions, and it won't as well, because it won't just come because you call it in any random situation. It has a mind of its own.
One of the things that really caught my eye was the bounty system that was shown off earlier in the week. The most interesting thing to me was that Atsu has her own bounty that changes through the game. How will that sort of rise in bounty over the game, how will that affect the player? Like, what are the immediate effects that we're gonna have to deal with?
Adding bounties to the game world felt so just perfect fit for the experience that we were going for. In both you hunting them down, which you saw and we're super excited about, and they're like a really fun way to just drive you through the landscapes, get some money, as we mentioned in the state of play, get some money to fuel your quest ahead. That's great. But it also is if there's a landscape where people putting bounties on people's heads, somebody's put one on yours. And we like this because it, first of all, tonally fits really nicely with the world and reflects sort of the danger of the landscape of the world. But also it's sort of seeing her legend grow, seeing the impact that she's done on the Yotei 6's sort of army of people, that they're starting to sort of take notice. And each time that bounty goes up, there's an impact on the play experience. There's without going into a whole bunch of details, there is a changing landscape of different types of archetypes, and you might have some traps that happen as you kind of move through those bounties. As that bounty goes up, it's going to get more difficult for you and challenging, and that keeps it really exciting too.
Because you mentioned traps, one thing I thought was really interesting was going down the Kitsune line. There's a super brief clip of the player being ambushed from people waiting in the snow, and I thought that looked super elaborate. Is that a specific ambush we're seeing, or are they quite reactive? Do the NPCs get quite sort of devious?
We absolutely got so excited, Andy, I gotta tell you. The day somebody said, all right, we're gonna make a snow level. We'll have ninjas dressed in white. Because, as you can imagine, right? Everything's white in the snow, and they could pop out of anywhere. That, in fact, is the case. It's not just a one-off event. The whole landscape where you meet them is one where you're always on guard, because they could be laying in wait for you at any corner, either in the snow or in foliage. And that feeling of tension is wonderful. It makes you feel like you gotta perk up your senses. Always have your hand ready on your sword so that you can react should an attack come. The combination of natural beauty and kind of hidden danger is our bread and butter. That's where this game really comes alive, and we're very proud of it. I'm glad you spotted that in the state of play. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, it looks fantastic, and some of that's been talked about a little bit more, but again, not in too much detail. I would say are the guns. I know earlier in the year, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 made the sort of jump with it being historical to handguns, and it was quite a single-use sort of gun, very difficult to use. What's the balance in Ghost of Yotei? Is it something that you're maybe going to get one shot off before a fight, or is it something that you can sort of spec into?
At this time in history, there were absolutely firearms in Japan, and they were very powerful. However, they were not incredibly efficient. They could get wet, it wouldn't work, it's hard to reload. And so we wanted to kind of mimic that. It does take a little while to kind of load the gun. However, when you shoot it, it can do a lot of damage. And this is true for the time. However, there's something else going on here. The sword has to be the prime weapon of the game, right? Dual wielding blades, spear, surigama, because the fantasy is definitely about wielding these weapons, about being an excellent martial artist. Firearms have a role, and they are incredibly deadly when used in the right time, but it's not like gun kata where the firearm is the melee weapon. Blades are the heart of the fantasy.
Do either of you have a favorite? I know it seems like quite a fluid mix between all of them, but do either of you have a favorite weapon that you find yourselves just coming back to, like, even if it's maybe not the right move in one situation, but
Dual swords. It's my jam.
immediate?
Yep, that's the one. I love it.
Oh boy, I really like the spear because you can get people at a distance and you can knock people backwards. You feel it's very flexible, and you can. Yep. You're in command of a lot of range with that weapon.
Looking outside of combat, one thing I really like the look of were the campsite features, where sort of a lot of those traditional open world sort of expectations come to you rather than being sought out. What was the sort of thought process behind putting more of the game into that sort of like campsite mechanic?
So campsites originally came from sort of where most of our great ideas, I think, come from the team, is thinking about the tone of the world and what makes sense for the landscape. We're in Ezo at the foot of this majestic Mount Yotei. There's nature everywhere. The sightlines are way bigger than it was in our last game. So you just feel totally immersed in this like massive landscape. And what better way to really capitalize on that is like, what would camping feel like, under the stars of Ezo, and that question, you go put it in, you feel it, and you're like, this tonally makes sense. And then very quickly, it became sort of a game design avenue where we could utilize, camping, this tonally, great experiential thing that fits within the universe, fits within land. It really marries well with it, but also accomplish some of our other goals, which is how do we make the game, pull the gamey barriers down and bring our explorers and our players features of the game in ways that kind of feel diegetic, if you meet an armorsmith person or somebody with unique items, but you don't really have the money to get those upgrades right now, but you've made those relationships and you've established them, you've unlocked them essentially, then later on down the road when you can, they might just appear at your site and remind you, or you might call them over to your site and you set your campsite down. And it's just a way for us to sort of try to meet the players where they're at. Like if you're over and exploring this landscape, yeah, we have fast travel. It was really, well received in the last game. You can kind of fast travel to anywhere you've been. But like, I don't want to leave here. Like maybe I'll just bring the person over I need to do my campsite, cook some fish, get an extra, little spear ball, but then go right back out into the world with my upgrades. I didn't really have to leave this place. It's just a way to create a more approachable game design for our players, but do it in a tonally sort of appropriate way that really builds up the world that we're making.
That sounds fantastic. It generally sounds like there's been a lot of thought put into that sort of philosophy of trying to bring the player into the game. Is that something that you were both sort of prioritizing like right off the bat for the sequel?
Well, without a doubt, we want players to be in the world looking at the beautiful, beautiful landscape brought to life by, Sucker Punch's environment art team, which just do a wonderful job. Having the landscape tell a story, provoke curiosity is something that helps players feel like they can just get lost in the moment. Gamey elements that feel like they're fourth wall breakers that take you out of the moment of being transported into your TV. We avoid them. Some aspects they're there, like a health meter, because frankly, it's just so dang convenient to really crisply understand what's going on. But we strive to just put people and their imaginations into the world itself. In Ghost of Tsushima, we had the guiding wind feature that would say, oh, if you want to follow the story, go this way. But of course, it's a suggestion. And on the way to that objective, you'll probably get distracted by something that catches your eye. That's a lovely experience, and it's driven entirely by the player. And that's where the magic of open world games really comes alive for us, and we invest in it heavily.
Just on the topic of you bringing up that sort of open world magic and that feeling of sort of very naturally going from one thing to the other, when you think about that feeling, apart from Ghost of Tsushima, what games have either of you played that you just immediately think of as an example of feeling that magic of being sort of like lost in the game for that time?
Oh man, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring,
Breath of the Wild. Those are the two I was gonna say. I mean, they're so like great at that. It's their bar setting in that way.
Yeah.
How do you balance that sort of emphasis on immersion with functionality, with people who, again, like you said, you still don't want to give away all of your tools for the sake of immersion, so still see health? Are there ways, for example, to sort of consistently attract a merchant to your camp so you can have that option, or is it not entirely in the player's hands who turns up?
It's a little bit of both, right? Like, so we showed a little bit of it, but we didn't go into details. But in the state of play, there was that wolf pack menu, and that is all the people that you've sort of met and that have, either missions or content for you, or, we talk about weapon senseis. They might have some extra skills for you for that particular weapon. We keep kind of a place that we can keep track of it. That's not just a word bomb journal that has a ton of stuff you have to sort of read. It's like, no, that person that you might remember the face and the way that they looked, you might be able to drill down to it. And for not every single one of them, but for many of them, you might be able to say, hey, I would like to see that person, bring them to your campsite. You can set up camp and they will be sort of almost as if you're summoning them in a way, right? Like it's a way for us, to really directly say, I want to talk to this person. But then also just under the hood, if you're not engaging with that menu and you're out, camping and you just camp to do a multitude of other things, we might have a queue going in the background. It's like, hey, this person actually has something unique for you that you can afford right now. Then we might put that towards you because we know that, this bow upgrade is really great and players might really enjoy it if they get it. So we might kind of front load that. So it's a little bit of both. We have a little bit of a system to try to make sure that you're getting access to these people, but there's also if the player decides that they want to just go and pull that person in, they can do that as well.
Earlier in the year, Assassin's Creed Shadows launched, and the recent showcase showed a few things that were present in that, or sort of similar touchstones. So, like that big traditional revenge epic story, the clue cards sort of investigative drive. What was it like to presumably have a lot of these things in development for a long time and see another studio also lean in that direction? Was it bracing for you? How did it feel?
We're big fans of feudal Japan and open world games, and to see another one on the market is exciting as gamers, right? We make the game that we want to play, and to see more like that, it's great. Our game is our own game. It features the things that we cherish. Our story of revenge is a classic in samurai cinema, but it's just the first step in this long tale of Atsu going from this broken lone wolf to assembling a wolf pack, and she changes. Her identity is the Onryo moving through the land where people grow to fear her and love her. It's its own experience. We can't wait for people to play it. Of course, we don't want to give away story details, but I can tell you that our quest for revenge is the start. It's absolutely not the whole thing, but it's a great start.
I think that as creators, like it's this is just a thing that you run into, and Nate said it best. Like, we are huge fans of this stuff. So if other media comes out, whether it's a video game or a film or a TV show, we're kind of happy that it exists, because it just drives the storytelling in this medium forward, the experiences in this medium forward. So for us, it's really exciting. But as creators, we're making our own thing, hyper focus on how to bring the best version of a Ghost game to life, the best version of Atsu's Vengeance Tale to life, which does grow to be this quite awesome experience, and it's different than just the very beginning of the very beginning is her Vengeance Tale. So for us, I think as creators, we really hyper focus on what's the best video game that Sucker Punch could make, and everything else is kind of consumer. We get to play it, we get to check it out, and we're excited it exists.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for making the time for that. That was really interesting to hear.